Ben Layne, I think this is show number 7, somewhere around there. I've lost count. Little Women is based on the book by Eliza May Alcott, and it's about the March family, the sisters Jo, Beth, Amy and Meg, and their mother Marmee, and their sort of house maid Hannah, and eventually their father, who left for the war. He became a pastor and left for the Civil War, and kind of how they all navigate those changes in their life, like with their father being away at war, and also with the changes within their life of them all growing up and getting married and moving out of the house, and the changes that families just inevitably go through over time. And it's a nice little snapshot of, I think, what life was like at that time in those really small sort of I like to call them kitchen sink kind of ways. Like, it isn't the really big stuff that a lot of plays are around. It's actually about the really small stuff, and in that way, I think it's about things that anyone can really relate to. I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, but we're also in a really politically divided time, and if we think about the time in the Civil War, there was the massive question over slavery versus abolition and all of that, and it drove lines through families. I think we can see a lot of that with our political climate that we're in right now, and the way that people kind of get through that in some sense is to really lean on one another within their families. And I think the March family absolutely does that here. And I think with this particular adaptation of Little Women, we see Jo really trying hard to hang on to the family connections and relationships that she holds most dear, even as lives change and people change and they're moving into new eras in their life. She's trying very hard to sort of keep things the way that she remembers them and wants them to remain, but she's struggling against the fact that people grow up, and lives change. And I think we can see that as well, the things that go on outside of the house, trickling in and vice versa. So I think it's very relevant right now. And I think that's why this story keeps coming up. It's one of those things, right? Like, why is a thing a part of like the American canon? And it's because it's a story that because it's so very much of its time, it actually becomes universal. That we can see the things that people were dealing with back then aren't that much different than the way that they are now. Even with all of the other changes that we have with technology and everything like that, it still all comes back down to what you want from your family, what you want from your relationships, how you want to change and grow as you get older. I think within the context of the play itself, it's very much about that time frame, right? Like, we don't know what it was like to live in the 1800s, so some of it about how you sort of hold yourself, how you conduct yourself, the things that we've kind of tried to go over in rehearsal. Also, outside of the context of the play, we're in winter in Minnesota, and that's very unpredictable. And we've lost several rehearsals right through this time of year with a couple of blizzards and deadly cold outside and everything like that. So that's created some extra challenges for us as well. But everybody's really banding together and toughing it out, which I think feeds nicely into the play itself, because that's what people had to do at that time too. So sometimes it's weird how things kind of can reflect one another, art and life and all that kind of stuff. For one thing, because I think these kids are really giving some nice performances, for one thing. I think it's about seeing people grow as artists, and I think everybody involved in this show is doing a really nice job with that. And I think, again, because it's a really timeless, classic story, it's a coming-of-age tale, and I think we all can relate to that. Whether we're going through it in our lives right now, or we can remember what it was like for us when we were kids. It can be a really scary thing if you're a kid with an older sister that you love very much who all of a sudden is, getting married and leaving the home when this family unit is all you've ever known. And I think that kind of fear is understandable and very real. And we can be reminded of what that might have been like for us when we were kids, and to also remember that we can get through change. We can get through those big moments in our lives. So long as we kind of keep an open heart. And I think that's really what this play is about.